Trump, he went to the South Bronx. He's went into Philadelphia. He's deliberately now going into minority districts. And his message, if you listen to him when he goes to a pizza party or a McDonald's, it's one of the reasons he's hated more than he was in 2020 or 2016. He's talking about unity, 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 and he's using the plural personal pronoun, we, us, against them, not in a deliberately divisive way, but we have more in common because we are the middle class, and you can't afford gas, and you can't afford to buy a house, and you are unsafe, and immigrants are swarming the dialysis clinic for you, and you're an American citizen, and we're all in this together. And I think that's the first time that I really heard a Republican politician talk like that.
Is Donald Trump's new strategy the secret weapon for winning over minority voters in 2024? In today's video, we're diving deep into the insights of historian and political commentator Victor Davis Hanson, who sheds light on what might just be the biggest game changer in American politics. Let's get started. According to Victor Davis Hanson, Donald Trump is taking a bold new approach in his campaign. He's not just sticking to the usual Republican strongholds. Instead, he's deliberately going into minority districts like the South Bronx and Philadelphia. But why? Because his message has shifted. It's no longer just about party lines, it's about unity. Trump is talking about we, us, and together. He's focusing on what middle-class Americans have in common. Things like unaffordable gas, housing, and safety concerns. And guess what? It's working. His message is resonating with Black, Latino, and Asian communities like never before. But there's more to this story. Victor Davis Hanson said that we are heading towards a significant cultural and political struggle. It's not just about winning votes. It's about the battle between traditionalists who want to preserve Western values and those who aim to reshape them. Trump's vision, Hanson explains, is not about creating a multicultural society. Instead, it's about building a multiracial society where everyone, no matter their background, can share in the American heritage. If you're willing to assimilate and integrate into American culture, you have just as much claim to our history as anyone else.
He does mention capital gains cuts and deregulation, and that's important, but he's talking about, really, if you think about it, is remolding the American body politic into not a multicultural body politic, but a multiracial, given what we have, that we are 70% white, 30% non-white. He's trying to say it doesn't matter what color you are. You can come, if we can assimilate and integrate you, you have just as much claim on Jefferson or Adams or Hamilton than a fifth generation person. And we can inculcate in you what was the traditional American reliance on Europe, the special relationship with Britain, and we can teach you this. And that is one of the reasons that he's hated. And I can tell you that when you turn on American cable news today and you listen to MSNBC or CNN, and this is the subtext of a lot of it. He's creating a false consciousness. That was what Joe Biden meant when Trump mentioned it earlier. You ain't black, or you're a junkie if you report this. And there's a real paranoia that he may get, and this is inconceivable, because under our dialectic of politics, the Democratic Party has completely alienated its core constituency of 30 years ago, the white lunch bucket union worker. They're losing him at about 65-35. And they're losing white women even 55-45. And they have a calculus, so if they get 90% of the black vote and 60% of the Asian, they can do it. But if they only get 80% of the black vote and they get 50-50 of the Latino and 50-50 of the Asian, they can't do it. And they know that. And that's what all the polls that they are running show right now, that Donald Trump, and no one can believe this, but each liberal poll shows him at 21% of the black vote, 47% of the Latino vote, 52% of the Asian vote. And if that goes true, and these are accentuated which is worse news. When you run the national polls, he's only ahead of Biden by 2 points. But on the Electoral College, when you look at the polls in Nevada that he lost, Arizona that he lost last time, Georgia that he lost, Pennsylvania that he lost, Michigan that he lost, Ohio, Wisconsin, he's ahead by 4 and 5 points in many of these states. And a lot of it is because he has made a huge inroads in cities, Hispanic cities like Phoenix, Tucson, Las Vegas, black cities like Atlanta, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Detroit. Even Minnesota is dead even. New Hampshire's dead even. And that is a result of, I think that's a very good news, that there's a possibility that people can be reminded of why they came here and why this was different from where they left. And if they were to replicate the culture and values of where they left, they wouldn't want to live here. And that's kind of a hard tonic to swallow, but I always said that to my Hispanic students, you enrich us with your food and your dress and your music and your art, and that's wonderful, but please don't tamper with the core. You do not want to import Mexican judiciary practice, Mexican government, Mexican ideas of race, Mexican ideas of women, etc. And so I'm cautiously optimistic that when I look at what Milley's doing in Latin America, and I look at these parties that are Macron's problems, and I'm cautiously optimistic that there is a Western pushback, and the West is saying privately, because they don't want to say it publicly because they'll be demonized as racist or worse, they're basically saying the left has had power, and the result of it is the West is pretty much disarmed. It doesn't have borders. It has no confidence in a national Western identity or tradition, and its crime rate is going up. And the middle class, by globalists or climate change activists or whatever, they're under assault, and we're not going to do it anymore. We're going to try to push back and save the culture. So we'll see who wins, but it seems to me that that's what we're looking at in the next 4 or 5 years, some kind of gargantuan struggle of traditionalists versus people who want to race these traditions and heritages. This country, remember, unlike Europe, it does have a better, it integrates, intermarries, and assimilates people much more easily than Europe does. It doesn't have that aristocratic class division at the same degree. And so our problem is letting so many people in. If you were to let in 200,000, 300,000 legal with skills that have to be self-supporting, they would be, and from all over the world, Europeans. If you said to the Europeans, we want you to come legally, and we will privilege people who are self-supporting with capital, we would get 100,000 Europeans coming here. And we get anybody that would, India, anybody. So I think I'm pretty confident that if you recalibrated legal immigration to, this is what Vivek Ramaswamy is talking about. If you could just let in 250 skilled people, then you're letting in really potential constituents for conservatism. Whereas these constituents are going to be dependencies on federal and state largesse. The worst thing about it is you see the government of Mexico and these Latin American governments are pushing this, because once they get here, they get federal subsidies and state subsidies up to about 15,000, 20,000 a year. That frees up them to work for cash, and they send back in aggregate 60 billion to Mexico and 60 billion remittances to Central America. And the Obrador government is terrified. That's the largest source of foreign exchange in Mexico, more than oil or tourism, 60 billion in remittance. Same thing for these Latin American countries in aggregate. And he knows that. I mean, the person that the left hates more than anybody in the Trump administration, that's a hard call because they're all despised, but is the bald-headed Steve Miller. He's the Prince of Darkness, and yet of all Trump's advisors, he's probably the closest to him. And he's a very brilliant guy, and they're terrified of him.
Davis Hanson, despite what national polls say, Trump is leading in key swing states like Nevada, Arizona, and Georgia. These states could be the deciding factor in the 2024 election, and Hanson believes Trump's strategy of reaching out to minority voters could tip the scales in his favor. So what does all this mean? Victor Davis Hanson paints a picture of a country on the brink of major change. The next few years will be a battle between preserving traditional values and embracing new ones. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you agree with Hanson's analysis? Don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe for more deep dives into today's most important issues. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.